Wolf puberty.
You want me to put you in the hospital?
Really hot.
I don't know what's happening. I gotta go. Dude is weird.
Oh ho ho! Here we go! It's the thing everyone talks about! It's the thing everyone joked about! It's Shirtless Jake! So, I did a little bit of research because I was like, how old is Taylor Lautner? He's actually 2 years older than me, but here he is 17. And as I was doing this research for the thing, I discovered that he was actually in danger of losing his role as Jake because of the physical changes that Jake needed to go through. They were thinking of casting another actor. That's actually what happened with Sam. They cast a different actor for for the rest of the movies for Sam. And Taylor Lautner didn't want to lose the role of Jake, so he buffed up, and that takes like a lot of work. It's really strict, it's really damaging to your body, and I think that's really cruel of them to have made a 17-year-old go through that. So yes, he's shirtless, yes, he looks very buff and he has abs, but how horrible to have made a teenager go through that in order to keep a role that should have been like guaranteed to him. And not only that, but his performance is so good. And you really, like, I've got to compare the two of them. These are our two leading men. We've got Robert Pattinson as Edward, we've got Taylor Lautner as Jacob. And at one time or another, both of these characters go through a tortured, can't be with you Bella, but I want to be with you Bella, like, moment. And Jacob's is so much more compelling, it's so much more believable, it's raw, you feel it, you really feel that emotion. And I must commend Taylor Lautner for his performance in this film, because without it, this film would be garbage. It's really, Taylor is holding New Moon together.
It is me. I'm not good. I used to be a good kid. Not anymore.
And, like, I wish teenage me hadn't been such a prude, because I would have enjoyed Jacob. Like, these movies have made me Team Jacob. I if I have to pick between the two of them, I pick Jacob. And I wish teenage me hadn't been so up herself and uppity. And even, okay, if I'm being super honest, teenage me would not have been into Jacob. Teenage me would have been into Jasper, because that messy bitch loved to fix people. Oh god, I would have loved Jasper because he's so tortured and broken, and I could be the one to fix him. Because I feel like Alice is very similar to me, even though I dislike Alice. I think we're very similar. So yeah, teenage me should have liked Jacob, but teenage me would have liked Jasper. That messy bitch. That's why you gotta live to be old. Old. Because you gotta grow and develop your taste in people you're attracted to, from very not good for you to probably better for you, and also can, pick you up with one hand. Who doesn't love that? Cowards. That's it. I think considering how Taylor Lautner's performance is so much more warm, emotional, compelling, layered than either Kristen Stewart's or Robert Pattinson's. And I must say that Kristen is doing a much better job in this movie than she was in the last movie. A change of director makes a huge difference. But still, Taylor is stealing, every scene together. You are drawn to his performance on screen, and I just think it's a real shame that because his character was shirtless, that his performance was reduced down to, oh, he's just shirtless, he's just the hot guy. Like, he wasn't hired to be the hot guy, he almost lost the job because he wasn't the hot guy, and then he acted his butt off while being severely dehydrated, because that's where you need to be to have those abs show up, dehydrated, and it's not necessarily a strength thing as well. So he got the look at damage to his own body, he got the look, and then he acted his butt off, and then people reduced him down to just like shirtless hot guy. Rude.
Without Jake, I can't stand it.
Bella spirals because now Jacob doesn't want to be friends with her, and now she doesn't have a guy to string along. She has like nothing to do with her time. So she's like, I'm gonna go back to where I used to be happy with Edward. You know, I'm gonna go and lay down in our field of flowers, and maybe I'll spin on my own. But when she goes to the field of flowers, she seems to have forgotten how seasons work, and that it's still winter. And so she's just really sad there are no flowers. Bella, you're so stupid. Laurent's back. Yes.
Okay, so his name is actually Laurent, not Laurent. I just had never seen it written down and just have been mishearing the actors this whole time. My bad. Fun tidbit. The reason Laurent is black is because the original director of Twilight was like, hey, can we diversify this a little bit? Maybe we can make Alice like Korean. Maybe we can make like Edward or Carlisle or one of the other Cullens, black or something like that. And Stephanie Meyer was like, I wrote they have alabaster skin. They're white. And the director was like, okay, but maybe, other than the Native Americans, maybe we could have a little bit more diversity. And Stephanie Meyer eventually caved and went, okay, one of the bad vampires can be black. And that's how we got the impeccable Laurent. She's also the reason we have non-white characters amongst Bella's friends. So, thank you to Catherine Hardwicke for giving us a diverser cast than Stephanie Meyer would have allowed us. Thank you for giving us Twilight, for kicking Twilight off, for making it so spectacular that we got the rest of the movies and it became a cultural phenomenon. I really owe you a lot. And sorry to Laurent for getting your name wrong. I love you.
And he's all like, I'm gonna eat you. And Edward's like, lie. Say we're in town. Lie. And Bella's like, yeah, they wouldn't like it if you killed me.
I better.
But I'm cheering it. I'm like, yeah, Laurent, bite her, eat her. You do it for you, Laurent. And he's all like, he's being a nice guy because Victoria would make it mean. She'd make it slow and painful, and he's all being gonna be like, done.
I promise. You will feel nothing.
But Laurent, what you doing, buddy? That ain't your mouth. That's not how you eat people. Oh, Laurent.
I don't believe it.
It's werewolf time. Werewolves! Oh no. Laurent, run! 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 Laurent!
I mean, they're like huge wolves.
Are you sure about that, Bella?
Yeah, I just saw them. They were after something.
I better.
And Jacob comes back to Bella's room and he's all like, I wanna could you, like, maybe, do you remember when we were on the beach? Do you recall that? And Bella's like, you know, about vampires? And he's like, and I have to admit, I didn't realize when I talked about it in the last film, that Jacob didn't know they were werewolves. He genuinely did think it was just a story. So I know I went on about how he could have just said it out loud, but I see now that he couldn't have, because he didn't even believe it himself. He didn't know they were werewolves. So wolf puberty was a huge surprise to him, and now he can't say anything about it. He's trying to get Bella to remember. But luckily, Bella has magic dream sequences. Don't we all? So she dreams about it, and she puts two and two together, I think. At least that seems to be why she storms over to check on Jacob, but he's just having a little nap. And then she sees the werewolves coming out of the forest, and it's just, from like Bella's perspective, she hasn't pieced together that they're werewolves. So from her perspective, she thinks that this bunch of guys with matching tattoos and who are always shirtless and are super buff are in some sort of gang, and she thinks Sam is running the gang and influence these people. So you're a tiny teenager and you're mad at very buff teenagers to adults who you think are in a dangerous gang. What do you do? And look, characters making bad choices is not a bad part of your story. I just think it's really funny, and I have to say it's very accurate, because I too was a tiny little teenager who would regularly like pick fights with bigger people, because I was like, well, what you're doing isn't right. I shoved myself into a fight once. I like turned around, and a guy he was like jabbing the rest of the girls in my class, like really quite close to their bosoms and making them all uncomfortable. So I was like, don't do that. And I got up in his face and I was like, what you gonna do? Punch me? Do it. Which was so stupid. Don't do that. I'm not saying, this is not a recommendation. This is a don't do this. And my mum was so mad at me. And she was like, what if he had punished you? I was like, well, he would have gotten a detention. It was such a Hermione, like, well, he would have been punished by a detention. Oh, I'm sure that would have taught him. So I totally get that Bella does it. It's just like, don't do that. And then she does, and you're like, all right. But then, like, one of them turns into a werewolf because they can't help it if they get mad. And he is mad because she just smacked him in the face. And then she's like running, and Jacob's all like, Bella, and she goes, run, Jake, which is nice, you know? But then Jacob, you know, werewolves out, and Bella's a bit like, she's sent over to have muffins with the other werewolves, and she's still a bit like,
Alpha's orders get obeyed whether we want them to or not. Oh, and check it out. We can hear each other's thoughts.
Would you shut up? These are trade secrets. Damn it. This chick runs with vampires.
You can't really run with vampires.
These boys are not very good actors. Bless them.
It's the wolf's out of the bag.
It's a bad line, but he does not pull it off. Why is this edited like this? They go for a walk on the beach, and Bella's all like, I know this seems really hypocritical coming from someone who like really wants to bang a vampire, but maybe you could not be a werewolf?
Well, can't you find a way to just stop? I mean, it's wrong.
It's not a lifestyle choice, Bella.
The more time we spend with Bella, the less I like her. The more you get to know about Bella and her personality and how she interacts with other people in her life, the less you are rooting for her, and the more you're like, yeah, maybe Laurent should kill her. Bella finds out that Victoria is around and coming after her, so Victoria, is your hair different? She decides now is the time to go for a wee cheeky jump into the ocean. And she does just that. She goes for a cheeky jump in the ocean, and like a wave hits her. And like I said, at this point, I dislike Bella, so I'm like, yeah, drown her, Poseidon. I'm gonna have to edit out all my laughter. I just think I'm so funny. So a wave hits her, and she bonks her head, but also she sees, she sees Victoria swimming. She sees like orange hair coming towards her, and it is actually Victoria, so you know. And then she like bonks her head, and she she floats down. What is this shot? She's floating down. Edward floats up. Could not stop laughing when I first saw it. And the second time I saw it, the third time I saw it, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's the new fluorescence. Jacob saves her, right? And it's so much better. Jacob is so much better than Edward because he's clearly discusses his concerns, his worries, his anxieties, and he allows her to comfort him with her words, and they have an open communication that isn't just him shooting down what she says or saying how he'd murder himself if she died. Team Jacob, okay? Team Jacob. Alice is back. She saw Bella jump off the cliff in her vision, and she thought Bella was dead, so she came back to check on her. And she wasn't dead. She's like, hooray! And Bella's like, yeah, no, I didn't try to kill myself. What? I wouldn't do that.
I was cliff jumping. Recreationally. It was fun.
I better.
Alice is talking with Bella, and she's all like, you smell. And then Bella's just like, oh, let me spill to you the secret of my friend, which I only just found out, but I feel it's my right to tell you about it. And then Alice is like, oh my god, werewolves are not good company to keep. How judgmental! How rude! Says you! You're a vampire!
Bella, werewolves are not good company to keep.
Speak for yourself.
Jacob comes back in, and Alice continues to be like really rude and prejudiced. She calls them like a pack of mutts, and Jacob is rightfully like, well, let's go. And Bella's like, no, calm down, Jacob. As if it's like, didn't the Cullens make a pact with the werewolves with the Quillette tribe to stay in that area? They could have been murdered, right? The Quillette could have been like, hey, we have the capacity to murder your kind with our mouths, and maybe we could do that. And the Cullens were like, no. We'll make you. We won't kill people. Please let us live here. And the Quillette like, okay, and let them, and therefore they have a safe haven to come back to, and it's their fault that the werewolf blood is coming back again. So Alice being a real bitch to Jacob, seems like someone's not grateful for the great gift that these people gave you. They allowed you to stay on their land. They've also protected you from other vampires. Like, just reel it in a little, Alice. Damn. Edward calls like, oh god. This movie got me like being like, yes, kiss between like, I'm Team Jacob, Team okay. I'm Team Jacob, so like this whole movie, Bella and Jacob are almost going to kiss, and then they never do, and I'm just like, oh, and they like almost kiss in the kitchen, or do they kiss? I can't even remember now. But I think they almost kiss. Someone calls up And then Jacob's all like, no, Charlie's not here. He's organizing a funeral. And I forgot to mention this, but Harry dies. He is this old man who makes good jokes, and he is very nice, and he dies at like the same time Bella is revived. So the world is unjust. And then we see Edward, and he like crushes the phone. He's wearing like a ripped shirt, and he's just like. And Alice comes in and goes, Edward's gonna kill himself. Rosalie told him about my vision, and he thinks you're dead. And Bella's like, did Jacob? Which, like, dick move on Jacob's part, right? But Jacob doesn't know that Edward's like a madman. Jacob doesn't know that Edward's like decided to Romeo this shit. Anyway, so they decide to go to Italy to stop him, and it's kind of framed like a choose between Edward or and Jacob situation. But even as a team Jacob, I don't think it makes any sense. Like, even if I didn't know someone, even if I didn't like someone, like if I knew them and I actively disliked this person, but they were going to commit guilt suicide because they thought I had died and it was their fault, I too would fly right across the world to stop them. I mean, I'd probably try and Skype them first, but, you know, Edward's crushed his phone. So, yeah, I'd probably also try and stop someone killing themselves out of guilt for my death when it hadn't happened. I think that's just a good thing to do. I think that's just a good person thing to do. I don't think it needs to be a Jacob-Edward dichotomy. I think it would be pretty cruel and selfish of Bella to stay. Just because, well, Edward was mean to me, I should let him kill himself. No? Bella's doing the right thing. Jacob, calm down a little. This whole last part feels like a completely different movie, right? It's a completely different location. The build-up of the movie has been towards a Jacobs-related conflict, not to Edward. Really doesn't feel like there's been any connection, like actual connection to this part of the plot of the movie. I realize Edward's been in the movie, but it doesn't feel connected to me. So it does kind of just like, oh, different movie. And it's a bit like Twilight had that issue as well. Like nothing kind of happened and then suddenly everything was happening. This movie kind of has the same problem. Bella's running across the thing, and we realize now that this is what her dream was like. So does Bella have prophetic dreams? Is that just a skill she has now? Or is it a narrative thing? I don't understand. I don't understand if we're supposed to understand the dream at the beginning as prophetic or just foreshadowing for the audience or whatever. But she's running towards Edward, and she could cry out. She could be like, Edward! No, I'm alive! But instead she's just like, run! Cry out, say something. A child sees him, so the masquerade is broken. He should be killed. A child saw him. But whatever. Not everyone saw him. Bella gets to him inside, they hug, he realizes she's there, and then she's all like, don't kill yourself, it's okay, I can move on. And he's like, I love you. And she goes, what? And it is at this point that I realized Bella didn't understand that Edward was breaking up with her for her own good. I got through this whole movie thinking Bella's reaction was super over the top, which it was. Because I thought it was obvious that Edward was like, look, I'm breaking up with you for your own good. This is, like, I obviously still care about you, but we can't be together. It's just too hard. And I thought that was obvious, and I thought Bella understood that. She was just really sad about it. But no. She genuinely did believe he was breaking up with her because he turned around and was like, you know what? You're a gross human and I don't like you. Oh Oh my god, she's so stupid. So this is the point when he's like, no, I'm never gonna leave you again. She's like, hooray. So this unhealthy dynamic totally solidifies in this moment because Bella was willing to do something very dangerous in order to see Edward again. That's unhealthy. And Edward was willing to kill himself because he thought she was dead. That's unhealthy. Bella says that she's nothing when she sees him. And Edward calls her his everything. So the codependence solidifies. That's it. They have covalent bonded. It's been a while since I did chemistry. I can't remember. Anyway, that's it. They're stuck together now. They've decided that codependency is the way to go, and that's the romance they want to have. Just saying. Someone being like your reason for existence is not inherently a bad thing. I just feel that it's definitely unhealthy. It's not my feelings. My feelings don't matter in this instance. These are unhealthy relationships. Both of them think that they have no value without the other one there, and both are willing to give up their lives without the other one there. That's just objectively writing on the wall unhealthy. I will give the movie credit in that it works with the Romeo and Juliet motif that they had kind of going. You know, they had that quote at the beginning, they had them studying the text. It does work. They are from somewhat clashing families, humans and vampires, and their romance is pretty whirlwind and motivated by other factors that maybe if they were both on the same side, you know, if they were both humans, if they were both vampires, they'd probably take their own time with it a little more. And yeah, both of them are willing to kill themselves without the other one. So I guess, yeah, props to the motif. Good job, Stephanie. But short-lived, because the other vampires show up and they're like, you gotta come with us. And Alice turns up and is like,
Come on, guys.
So Edward has the audacity to say no rules were broken while holding his human girlfriend. It's a pretty big rule right there, buddy. I don't know if the elevator scene is supposed to be funny. I find it funny.
Sister, send you out to get one and you bring back 2.5. Such a clever girl.
Such a clever girl. Did you spend all your budget on Michael Sheen? Couldn't get the rest of your actors to be good? Props to Michael Sheen, okay? Michael Sheen's just amazing. He's an amazing actor. He does an amazing job as this vampire. I love his performance. I love vampires like this.
Remarkable.
But I also love that he was so defensive of Twilight, and he really didn't put up with any of the negative criticisms that people would say that were bogus. You know, people would be like, "Oh, it's kind of stupid, isn't it? Oh, teenage girls, ha ha ha." Or Michael Sheen would be like, "No, don't be rude." Because he really he drinks his respect women juice. So props to Michael Sheen. This is where we find out that Bella is super special. I have nothing wrong with Bella being super special. Like, people are like, "Oh, Mary Sue." Like, no. She's the main character in the series. Is Harry a Mary Sue because he's a Horcrux? No. Percy Jackson was probably also super special within his story. I didn't read Percy Jackson, so I don't know. But I've heard that series is very good, but it probably also has, if you're writing a story, if your story is around a character, they have to be super special for some reason. Whatever his name, Shia LaBeouf from Transformers, he was super special, but only because his grandfather accidentally got something on his glasses. So I think Bella's blood being special is actually better than that. So Bella is super special. She's got, nice smelling blood, but also she cancels out other vampire skill. And my friend explained it to me that maybe people who are gonna make good vampires will have delicious smelling blood, which encourages other vampires to bite them and turn them. And Bella's vampire ability is to cancel out other people's abilities. So that's really cool. Except, does that not work on Alice? Because Alice saw Bella coming. Alice saw her and Bella being friends. Alice saw Bella turning into a vampire, which Alice's visions are based on decisions. If people make a decision, she sees a vision. And if they change that decision, the vision changes. So Bella and her being friends, that would be Bella's decision. Bella turning into a vampire, that's still Bella's decision. And she saw it before, like, she even knew Bella, so it can't have been Alice's decision. It must have been Bella's. So why is Alice able to see visions around Bella when everyone else's vampire abilities are cancelled out by Bella? It's confusing. It's a confusing plot hole. And maybe it will be explained in later movies? I hope not, because I like complaining about things. So the soul thing comes up again, and like I cannot stress how much the soul debate like really ruins a lot of series if you don't believe in souls. Like I'm a huge science fiction fan, but there's a lot of science fiction that revolves around robots or, you know, artificial life forms and things like that that boils down to, but do they have a soul? And I'm like, no one has souls. Next question. Are they of a developed enough independent intelligence to be considered a life form outside of humanity? That's a good question. You know, is it, you know, where does the line between an AI program to react to and respond and learn from its environment, where does the programming end and the individual start? That's an interesting question. But whether or not they have souls, no one has souls. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they have souls, because no one has a soul. Problem solved. I think, yeah, like, I understand that soul is the shorthand for that longer question, but a lot of the time these other questions get answered, and then it still comes down to whether or not they have a soul. And if you don't believe in souls, then it doesn't do anything for you. And it's the same in this. I don't care if vampires have souls, and I don't care if their souls are damned, because I don't think anyone has a soul, so it's pointless. But it thankfully doesn't go on too long. In fact, I think the movie goes on about it less than I just did. Bella and Edward and Alice are allowed to go on the proviso that they turn Bella soon. She must be a vampire because she knows about vampires, and that's like their big rule. So like, we want vampires, we want cool vampires with cool powers, so they're allowed to go. Bella sees a whole bunch of people being led to their death. She knows they're going to be slaughtered. I think she even hears their slaughter. And I think that's not an operation that you could do more than once. That's barely an operation you could do once. You like, they're tourists, and they go missing in a huge amount in the same place. Some of them are children. There's going to be international outcry. There's no way you could do that multiple times, unless the Volturi are so rich that they can pay off multiple governments. And also social media, right? Like, you'd have to stop their families from tweeting about it and doing their own investigations. And I just doesn't seem realistic, but whatever, it's pretty horrific. But Bella, who woke up screaming for months because a boy broke up with her, just goes, and then, when she has a nightmare about, you know, tens of people being brutally murdered. Our main character is a monster.
Hey.
Thankfully, the movie is drawing to a close. And I say thankfully because it starts off boring and bad because Edward is there, and then Edward goes away, and Bella and Jacob have a really cool interaction. They have a really cool relationship. Jacob is fun. You're like, Jacob, werewolves are fun. You're like, werewolves. And then Edward comes back and they go back to spinning and looking at each other and being simpering and not having a good time. And it's just like, ah. So the movie is coming to a close. Jacob shows up. Jacob! And he's like, what is he like? Bella, if they turn you, I'm gonna have to kill you. Like, it's not a threat. This is part of, like, our werewolf thing. It's also a contract that we signed. They can't turn a human into a vampire. They can't do that. They'd be breaking the treaty, and then I'd have to kill you and probably them. And Bella goes, don't make me choose, as if this is Jacob's decision. No, this is a treaty they signed. Like, this is a legal document, I guess. I don't think it's, I don't think it's an actual, like, legal document, but it's an agreement that the both parties have come to, and the Cullens know this. So, yeah, Jacob's just like, that's just the facts. But Bella sees this opportunity to be emotionally manipulative, and she goes, look, Jacob, I love you, but don't push it, because I love Edward more. I'm gonna choose him. And she actually genuinely says that. Oh my god.
I love you. So please. Don't make me choose. Because it'll be him. It's always been him.
That's not nice. That's so mean. That's harsh and cruel. And you know when, like, earlier in the movie we're all mad at Edward for being like, I'm breaking up with you. Why aren't we mad at Bella for breaking Jacob's heart? Like, not just breaking it, plunging her hand into his chest, ripping it out and crushing it in front of him. He cries at wolf. And then the movie ends with Edward being like, okay, so you want to be a vampire? She's like, yeah. He's like, so forever? Me and you? She goes, yeah. And then he goes, let's get married. And it ends on Bella being like, I enjoyed New Moon, but only once Jacob turned up. You know, once the Jacob and Bella dynamic set in properly, the movie was far more enjoyable. Everything with Edward was painful and, like, not just boring, but uncompelling. You just didn't care about their relationship. If anything, you actively disliked it because it continues to have no chemistry. It continues to be super unhealthy. And then they put Jacob there and they're like, hey, here's a much healthier dynamic that's best for both parties. You like that? And you go, no. Like, there's no way that Team Jacob, Team Edward was ever really going to be a proper dichotomy. It's going to be Edward the whole way. It was a pretty poor attempt at a love triangle. You never really believed that Bella was interested in Jacob. At least I never really believed it. I always thought that she was just manipulating him to make her feel better because she missed Edward and she just wanted a guy to validate her. And that seems to have been the case, because once Edward showed up, she dropped Jacob like a hot potato. The directing, the cinematography, it was much better than Twilight. The colour palette, for example, was far more pleasant to see. And just everything, for the most part, there were some questionable choices. But for the most part, it was just a far more visually appealing film. Taylor Lautner's performance deserved way more credit than it got. It's excellent, and Kristen Stewart's performance really improves when she's with him because they bounce off each other really well. Robert Pattinson needs to have a cup of coffee, maybe wake up, maybe start acting on screen. That might seem a little harsh, but Robert Pattinson can act, and he simply seemed to be choosing not to in this film, so Like, come on, Robert. Wake up. And I've forgotten what I was gonna say. What was I gonna say?
It's the wolf's out of the bag.